You've probably heard by now that there's free electricity sitting in the air above your roof. And if you're on a fixed income, that idea sounds like a lifeline, doesn't it? Like someone finally found a way to stick it to the utility company and put money back in your pocket where it belongs. But here's what nobody is telling you, and I want to be straight with you about this. The reason most of those atmospheric power devices never caught on isn't a conspiracy. It's something far more practical, and once you understand it, you're actually going to make a smarter decision about your roof and your winter power bill. My name is David, and I've spent the last 15 years helping people over 60 reduce their power bills without falling for shortcuts that drain their retirement savings faster than summer air conditioning. And that's exactly why I'm making this video. Because atmospheric collectors, those antenna rigs you see advertised as $30 roof builds, they do collect a tiny charge. The physics is real, but I want to walk you through what actually happens when you try to use that charge in a way that makes sense for your home and your wallet. Let me start with something that sounds simple, but changes everything. The air above your house isn't uniformly charged. Right now, on a winter morning before the sun climbs high, there's a voltage gradient, a difference in electrical potential, between the ground and the clouds. On clear days, it's smaller. On cloudy days, it's larger. And here's the part that matters for your power bill. That voltage is constantly shifting. It's not consistent enough to charge a battery bank the way you need it to be, and it's definitely not strong enough to power your furnace without additional help. Now, the internet will show you diagrams of people collecting kilowatts from the atmosphere. Those diagrams are based on historical experiments from the early 1900s, the kind where scientists were just trying to prove it could be done, not the kind where they were actually running a house. And that distinction matters enormously when you're 65 years old, retired, and you can't afford to waste $300 on a roof installation that produces 6 watts in ideal conditions. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is the angle that most people miss completely. The atmospheric charge isn't worthless. It's just worthless in the wrong season. See, in winter, when your power bill is actually at its peak because you're running your furnace constantly, the atmospheric voltage actually increases because of temperature differentials and storm activity. You're paying the most for electricity at exactly the time when the sky above you is most electrically active. That's not a coincidence. That's the reason a smart homeowner should actually care about this. Let's talk about what's really happening with your winter power bill. If you're running electric heat or a heat pump, you're spending between $300 and $600 a month from November through March, depending on where you live. That's a third of your monthly fixed income for some people. And the utility company is banking on the fact that you'll accept it as inevitable. Heating your home is non-negotiable. You have to stay warm. But the strategy for reducing that bill isn't actually about pulling electricity from the sky. It's about reducing the amount of heat your home is losing in the first place. And this is where that atmospheric energy collection idea actually becomes useful, but in a completely different way than you've been told. Instead of trying to power your home directly from the sky, what if you use the principles behind atmospheric collection to understand how electricity naturally moves through air and around your home? What if that understanding helped you see where heat is actually bleeding away, and where you could seal gaps, reroute airflow, and dramatically cut the amount of energy your furnace has to produce in the first place? You see, the atmosphere teaches us something that the utility companies don't want you to think about too hard. Energy always flows from high concentration to low concentration. Heat escapes from your warm home to the cold air outside because that's thermodynamically inevitable. The voltage in the sky moves from the charged atmosphere to the grounded earth, because that's how electricity works. And once you understand that principle, once you really see it, you stop wasting money trying to fight it and start using it. Here's what I'm getting at, and please stay with me because this directly affects your power bill. Most American homes built before 1990 have attic insulation that's roughly equivalent to wearing a summer shirt in a blizzard. The heat from your furnace, the heat your money is literally paying for, rises through the ceiling and escapes through the roof at a rate that would shock you if you saw the numbers. Your utility bill isn't high because you use too much electricity. It's high because your home is hemorrhaging the energy you've already paid for. And now, finally, here's where atmospheric collection becomes practical for your situation. Not as a device, but as a concept. The same principle that draws charge from the air, that creates a difference in potential and allows energy to move, is exactly what's happening in your walls and attic right now. There's a temperature difference, there's a pressure difference, and energy is moving from where you want it to where you don't want it to go. Understanding that atmospheric potential difference actually makes you smarter about fixing your real problem. So let's get very practical. If you're 60, 65, or 70, and you're living on Social Security plus maybe a small pension, you probably feel like you have two choices. You can either freeze or go broke. But that's not actually true. And the path forward isn't building an antenna on your roof. It's understanding why that atmospheric charge is strongest in winter and using that understanding to radically cut how much heat your home needs to lose in the first place. The research is clear on this, and it comes from the Department of Energy, not from some YouTube channel trying to sell you something. The average American home loses 25 to 30% of its heating energy through the roof and attic alone. Another 15 to 20% leaks out through walls and foundation cracks. That's nearly half your heating bill, half of it, just pouring out of your house like you punched a hole in the walls. And unlike atmospheric collection devices, which are speculative and uncertain, fixing these problems is direct, measurable, and you can see the results on your utility bill within a single billing cycle. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You're thinking, David, if this is so obvious, why hasn't my landlord or my home inspector told me about it? And the answer is uncomfortable but important. Attic insulation and ceiling drafts don't generate ongoing revenue streams. The utility company doesn't care how much you use once you're already on the bill. They benefit if you keep using more. Home improvement contractors are more profitable when they're installing new systems rather than optimizing existing ones. And atmospheric power devices? Those sell because they sound futuristic and exciting, even if they barely work. But you didn't get to retirement age by being naive about who benefits from your choices. You know how to spend money carefully. You understand opportunity cost. So let me walk you through exactly what the math looks like when you compare trying to pull electricity from the sky versus actually sealing your home against winter. An atmospheric collector antenna, even if you build it yourself, requires at least $75 to $150 in materials. Copper wire, tubing, insulators, grounding rods, and the capacitors you need to store any charge you collect. Installation requires you to go up on your roof, potentially in winter, and if you make a mistake with the grounding, you've just created a lightning rod. No insurance company will cover damage from an improperly grounded atmospheric collection device because it's not a recognized system. You've got all the liability and almost none of the benefit. Now compare that to sealing your home. $20 of weather stripping applied around your exterior doors can save you $30 to $50 per month during heating season. That pays for itself in a week. $150 worth of caulk and insulation materials applied to air leaks in your basement rim joist, around your plumbing penetrations, and in your attic can cut your heating bill by 15%. That's $45 to $90 per month for most homes. You recover that investment in the first month, and then you're just saving money for the rest of your life. Here's what the atmospheric power advocates won't tell you, and here's where they're actually missing an opportunity to help people like you. The reason those devices don't work at scale isn't because there's a conspiracy against them. It's because the voltage differential in the atmosphere is incredibly small compared to what you actually need to do anything useful. A battery bank requires a minimum voltage to charge properly. An inverter needs consistent voltage to convert DC to AC. Your home needs reliable, steady power, not intermittent sky charges that fluctuate with weather. But here's the twist, and this is the part that makes me frustrated with how this topic is usually covered. If you actually want backup power for your home, real, usable backup power that'll run your furnace during an outage, atmospheric collection isn't the answer. Not because the physics doesn't work, but because it's the wrong tool for the job. There are much better options that actually deliver results, and those options have nothing to do with antennas and everything to do with understanding how your home actually consumes power in winter. Think about this practically for your situation. Your furnace uses power in short bursts, maybe 2 to 4 hours per day during a mild winter, 8 to 12 hours during a cold snap. That's actually an ideal scenario for a small backup system, because you don't need to power your entire home. You just need to power your furnace, your water heater, and maybe your refrigerator and some lights. That's maybe 3 to 4 kilowatts of demand and then mostly idle time. That's the opposite of what atmospheric collection offers you. It's the opposite of what solar offers you in winter because the sun is low and weak. So here's what I want you to understand before we go deeper. The narrative you've been hearing about free electricity from the sky is technically true, but contextually useless for someone in your situation. It's like being told you can pull fish from a river with your bare hands. Technically possible in rare circumstances, practically impossible as an actual food strategy. And meanwhile, there's a grocery store 2 blocks away that you could walk to right now. What you actually need is a winterized home that doesn't waste the heating energy you're already paying for, combined with a backup power plan that makes sense for your specific heating equipment. And the good news, the really good news, is that both of those are completely within your control right now, without any dubious roof installations or atmospheric collection experiments. Let me be even more direct, because you deserve clarity. If you invest one weekend and $300 in properly sealing your home, and I mean really sealing it, with professional attention to the major leak points, you will save between $50 and $100 per month on heating. That's $600 to $1,200 per year, every year for the rest of your life. That's not theoretical, that's not dependent on atmospheric voltage fluctuations, that's thermodynamics, and thermodynamics doesn't care what the utility company wants. Now, the reason I'm being so direct about this is because I've seen too many people on fixed incomes spend money on projects that feel like they should work, but deliver almost nothing. And I've also seen people who made smart choices about their homes, who invested their time and a little bit of money in the right places and completely changed their financial situation. And I'm not exaggerating. A woman who lives in Pennsylvania, 72 years old, told me that after she sealed her attic and weatherized her basement, she was able to drop her thermostat from 68 degrees to 64 degrees and still felt more comfortable. That's a 40% reduction in heating use. She's saving $800 a year. Now that's money she didn't have before. So let's reframe this entire conversation. What if the real value of understanding atmospheric electricity isn't actually about building collection devices? What if it's about learning to see your home the way the atmosphere works, as a system with pressure differences and potential gradients and energy flowing from one place to another? What if understanding that flow of energy is the key to stopping waste instead of chasing after speculative technology? This is where most of the online information about atmospheric power actually fails you. It presents the question as, how do I capture electricity from the sky? But the real question for your retirement account is, how do I stop throwing money away on heating a home that's built like a sieve? And those are completely different questions with completely different answers. The reference material I'm drawing from, the historical experiments with atmospheric electricity collection, those were done by incredibly brilliant people. Nikola Tesla, the people who came after him, they weren't frauds, but they were asking, can this be done? Not, should this be your heating strategy? And that's a crucial difference. Just because something is physically possible doesn't mean it's the right choice for your situation. Let me ask you a direct question. When you think about your winter power bill, what part of it bothers you the most? Is it the total amount? Is it the unpredictability? Is it the feeling that you're being overcharged? Because the answer to that question actually determines what action you should take right now. And none of that action involves roof antennas. If the total amount bothers you most, then the answer is reducing consumption through better insulation and sealing. If unpredictability bothers you, then the answer is a backup generator or battery system that lets you control when you use grid power. If you feel overcharged, then the answer is understanding your billing structure and potentially switching to a different utility plan. But none of those answers involve trying to collect voltage from the atmosphere, and I want to be very clear about that because I respect your time and your money. Now, here's something that almost nobody discusses, and this is important for your planning. The months when atmospheric voltage is actually highest, when storms are most active and charge differential is greatest, those are the exact months when you're most vulnerable to power outages. Winter storms knock down power lines. Ice storms and heavy snow take out transformers. And when that happens, your furnace doesn't work if you don't have backup power. This isn't theoretical. This happens every winter in every part of the country. So the real strategic question for your winter isn't how do I tap atmospheric electricity? It's how do I make sure my furnace runs during a storm when the grid goes down? And that answer is practical, achievable, and absolutely within your control right now. Think about the chain of events when a winter storm hits. The ice or snow brings down power lines. Your furnace stops running because it needs electric power to operate the ignition and the blower motor. Your house temperature drops. If you live somewhere cold, that's not just uncomfortable. It's dangerous. Pipes freeze. Your entire home is at risk. A backup system that can power your furnace for even 6 to 8 hours can be the difference between a minor inconvenience and a major disaster. And here's the part that should make you angry at the people selling atmospheric collection devices. They market them as backup power solutions, but they don't actually tell you the percentage of usable electricity generated versus what you actually need for a furnace. They show you the voltage measurements and the theoretical kilowatts, but they never show you the actual watts you can continuously draw without the system collapsing. They don't show you what happens on cloudy days or calm days when atmospheric voltage is low. They don't show you realistic usage scenarios. This is why I'm making this video, not to tell you that atmospheric electricity doesn't exist, it absolutely does, but to tell you that for your specific situation, on your fixed income, trying to power your home from the sky is the wrong strategy. It's the kind of strategy that feels innovative and exciting, and it taps into your desire to beat the system. But it leaves you vulnerable and without reliable backup when you actually need it. Let me walk you through what a smart winter strategy actually looks like, because this is where your thinking needs to shift. First, you seal your home. Not perfectly, that's impossible, but strategically. You identify the major air leak points: attic access hatches, basement rim joists, around plumbing and electrical penetrations, window and door frames. You spend a weekend and maybe a few $100s, and you cut your heating bill by 20 to 30%. That's month one. Second, you get a professional energy audit. Most utilities offer these for free or cheap because they want to understand where energy is being wasted. A professional with thermal imaging equipment can show you exactly where your money is leaking away. That information is worth its weight in gold because it tells you where to focus your effort and money. Third, you plan for backup power. And here's the key. Backup power isn't about running your entire home. It's about running the critical systems: your furnace, water heater, refrigerator, and a few lights. That's a 3 to 5 kilowatt load with intermittent duty. A propane generator can handle that for weeks on a single tank. Battery backup can handle that for hours. Neither solution requires roof antennas or atmospheric collection experiments. Fourth, once you've sealed your home and have backup power in place, then, only then, can you intelligently add renewable energy if you want to. A small solar array on your roof, sized appropriately for your actual usage. Not as a fantasy of going completely off-grid, but as a genuine reduction in your grid consumption during sunny months. This is the logical sequence: seal first, backup second, renewable third. I want you to notice something important about this sequence. Nowhere in it did I tell you to build an antenna on your roof. And that's not because atmospheric electricity doesn't work. It's because it doesn't fit your actual needs. Your actual needs are reliable heat in winter, backup power during storms, lower monthly bills, and peace of mind that you're not vulnerable to disasters. Those needs are met by sealing, backing up, and then carefully adding renewables, not by chasing atmospheric voltage. Now, I want to address something that you might be feeling right now. You might be thinking, David, this all makes sense, but I've been hearing about free atmospheric electricity for months now. Am I being fooled? Is this some kind of cover-up? And I understand why you feel that way. The energy industry has certainly suppressed a lot of information over the decades. That's not conspiracy, that's just business as usual. Entities that profit from the status quo protect that profit. But here's the thing. If atmospheric electricity collection actually worked at a residential scale, we wouldn't need massive solar farms or wind turbines. Every house in America would already have an antenna on its roof, and the utility companies would be bankrupt. That hasn't happened because the technology doesn't scale down. It doesn't work in ways that are practical for individual homes. It's not a cover-up, it's physics. What is suppressed is information about home efficiency. That's absolutely true. Utilities and contractors benefit when you think your only option is to use more power or install expensive new systems. They benefit when you feel powerless, and I mean that literally, about your bills. But the solution isn't a roof antenna. The solution is understanding that you have much more control over your situation than you've been told. That's empowering. And unlike atmospheric collection, it actually works. Let me give you the actual historical context here, because it matters. In the early 1900s, when Tesla and others were experimenting with atmospheric electricity, they were trying to solve the problem of wireless power transmission over long distances. The research was real. The experiments were real. But they were trying to do something fundamentally different from what you need. They were trying to transmit power from a central station across miles of empty air. That's a completely different problem from powering your house in winter. The closest modern analogy is wireless charging for your phone. The technology exists, it works, but it's not efficient enough to replace traditional charging. We use it in specific places, your desk, your car, where convenience is worth the energy loss. But you don't power your entire phone throughout the day with wireless charging. You'd waste energy and get unreliable results. The same principle applies to atmospheric electricity for home power. It's technically possible, but practically inferior to other options. So here's what I want you to do right now, and I'm going to be very specific about this. First, this week, get the complete guide on winterizing your home for heating efficiency. We've created a detailed guide that walks you through every step: where to look for air leaks, which materials to buy, how to apply them correctly, and most importantly, how to calculate your specific savings based on your climate zone and home size. You can find that guide in the description and in the pinned comment. It's worth your time to go deeper on this because the money you'll save is real money, not theoretical future electricity. Second, after you've reviewed the sealing and efficiency information, then contact your utility company about a free or discounted energy audit. Write down the date and promise yourself you'll get that done before the cold season really hits. That thermal imaging data is incredibly valuable, and it's going to show you exactly where your money is going. Third, make a plan for backup power. It doesn't have to be expensive. A good quality generator costs a few $100s and will power your furnace and essentials for weeks. That's actual insurance against winter disasters. Unlike atmospheric collection, it's reliable, proven, and available right now. And that's the real path forward for your winter, for your power bill, and for your retirement security. It's not exciting, it's not futuristic, it's not the kind of thing that generates videos with clickbait thumbnails about conspiracy, but it works. And for someone on a fixed income, it actually puts money back in your pocket instead of promises on your roof. I want to circle back for just a moment to the original question that attracted you to this topic. You heard about free electricity from the sky, and you thought, finally, a way to break free from the utility company. And I get that feeling, I really do. After decades of working hard and being responsible, you deserve to have costs that make sense. You deserve to feel like you're in control of your situation, and you can be. But the way to get there isn't by chasing atmospheric voltage. It's by understanding energy the same way the atmosphere understands it, as something that flows from high concentration to low, that seeks efficiency, and that rewards you when you know how to work with the fundamental physics instead of against it. Your home is already a system. Your heating needs are already predictable. Your backup power options are already proven. You're not starting from zero. What you need to do is shift from thinking about free electricity from space to thinking about electricity I can actually control and afford. That's a different mindset. And it's a much more powerful one because it's rooted in physics that works, not promises that sound too good to be true. So let's talk about what actually happens in your attic, your basement, and the space between your walls during winter. Most of you are losing money every single day, not because you're being ripped off by the utility company, but because the systems you already have aren't coordinated. Your heating runs when it wants. Your backup power sits idle when you need it most. And the thermal energy your home generates, the waste heat from cooking, from showers, from just living, is disappearing into the cold air outside. That's real energy. That's measurable energy. And you're paying to create it and then paying again to get rid of it. That's the system nobody talks about because there's no money in fixing it for you, but there's money in it for you once you understand it. Here's the part that matters for this winter. In the 1970s and 1980s, when energy consciousness first hit American homes, people started paying attention to insulation, and they should have. But what they missed, and what your home probably still has wrong, is that insulation alone is only half the equation. You need both insulation and radiant barriers. Insulation stops conductive heat loss. A radiant barrier stops infrared radiation from escaping. Most homes, even ones built in the last 15 years, have decent insulation, but almost no radiant protection. That means on a freezing night, when your furnace or heat pump has worked hard to warm the air in your home to 68 degrees, the infrared radiation from that warmth is still radiating straight through your ceiling and into the attic void. Your insulation slows it down maybe, but it doesn't stop it. A $6 roll of reflective aluminum radiant barrier installed horizontally across your attic joists stops it cold. And I mean that literally. What used to radiate away and cost you money just bounces back down into your living space. Now, here's where this connects to atmospheric power in a way that actually makes sense. The atmosphere is constantly radiating energy in all directions, but so is your home. And most people think energy independence means fighting the atmosphere by putting panels on the roof or turbines in the yard. But the real independence comes from making your home a closed system where the energy you create or capture has nowhere to escape. That's not mystical. That's basic thermodynamics. And it's why a $2.00 upgrade to your attic can cut your heating costs by 15 to 20% more than insulation alone. That's real money, not theoretical, not someday, this winter. But most people don't do this because they've been sold on the idea that energy independence has to be dramatic. It has to involve technology. It has to cost money up front and somehow magically pay for itself. And some of it does. But the fastest way to save money on energy costs isn't building something new. It's stopping what's already broken from wasting what you've already paid for. So let's shift to the second layer. Once you've sealed and insulated your attic properly, and that's a weekend project for most people, the next loss point in winter is your heating system itself. Now, I'm not going to tell you to replace your furnace. That's 10 grand you don't have and frankly don't need. But I am going to tell you something that will save you $200 to $300 this winter alone. Your heating system is probably running a cycle that was designed by engineers in the 1980s. It heats, it shuts off, the house cools, it heats again. On and off, on and off. That cycling is wasteful because each time the system kicks on, it uses a surge of energy. It's like idling a truck in your driveway just to move it 10 feet. Inefficient and expensive. The fix is a learning thermostat. Now, before you roll your eyes and think I'm about to sell you a $1,000 smart home system, stop. A basic programmable thermostat that learns your patterns costs $90 to $150. And it does one thing that makes everything else better. It stops the on-off cycling by managing temperature in smaller increments. Instead of heating to 70 and then dropping to 65, it heats to 67.5 degrees, which is close enough that your system doesn't cycle on and off. It hums along at a steady, efficient state. For someone on a fixed income in a cold climate, this is a $300 savings a winter, year after year. No panels, no mystical devices, just physics working the way it's supposed to work. And you're paying 3% of that savings in the cost of the thermostat. It's one of the best return on investment energy projects you can do, and almost nobody does it because it's not dramatic enough to talk about. Nobody makes a YouTube video called "Guy installs thermostat saves $200." But I'm telling you now, that's the real stuff. That's what actually moves the needle on your winter energy bill. The atmospheric power systems, the magnetic generators, the underground batteries, they're fascinating, and some of them have kernels of real physics. But they're also the reason people lose focus and never actually reduce their bills. They chase the exotic and miss the obvious. So here's what I want you to understand about this winter and the ones ahead. Your home is not a puzzle that needs a revolutionary solution. It's a system that needs coordination. Your attic needs to stop radiating heat. Your heating system needs to run efficiently. Your backup power, whether that's a generator, a battery bank, or both, needs to be positioned so you actually use it instead of just keeping it in case. And the thermal mass in your home, the brick walls, the concrete foundation, the water tanks if you have them, need to be managed as a heat battery. That last one is important and worth explaining because it's where backup power and heating systems actually intersect in a practical way. If you have a basement or a root cellar, that space has thermal mass. During the day, if you're running any kind of heating or you get even indirect sunlight, that space stays cool but absorbs some warmth. At night, when outside temperatures drop below that basement temperature, the basement becomes a heat source. Now, if you have a backup power situation, say a blackout, or you're deliberately running off grid for part of the day, you can use that thermal mass to your advantage. Here's how. Instead of running your furnace all night and draining your backup battery, you let your home temperature drop to 62 degrees at night. Your basement, which stays relatively stable because of all that mass, acts as a thermal buffer. When morning comes and you need heat again, your furnace cycles on for shorter periods because the baseline temperature is stable instead of crashing. You're using the Earth's natural thermal regulation to cut your heating fuel consumption. This is the kind of thinking that actually saves money on a fixed income because it's not about buying something new. It's about understanding how the systems you already have actually work and then using that understanding to let them work more efficiently. That's the missing piece. That's what atmospheric power inventors were looking for, a way to get something for almost nothing. But the real way to do that isn't to defy physics. It's to work with physics instead of against it. And physics in your home right now is your ally. You just have to learn to read it correctly. So let's talk about what this actually means for your power bill when winter arrives. You've already done the hard part. You've understood that your basement is a thermal battery, sitting there right now, holding steady temperature whether you want it to or not. Now you're going to use it. Most people don't realize that during a cold snap, the temperature difference between your basement and your living space isn't a problem to hide from. It's an opportunity you're throwing away every single day. Here's the scenario. It's January, it's 25 degrees outside, and your heating system is working overtime. Your living room thermostat reads 68, so the furnace kicks on every 15 minutes. That's the conventional way. That's what everyone does. But you're not everyone. You've got a basement that's naturally staying at 55 to 58 degrees. That's not cold. It's cool. And cool is exactly what a heat pump needs to do its job with less strain. A simple, affordable heat recovery approach works like this. You install a low-cost inline fan, about $80 to $120 for a good one, in your basement ceiling. That fan pulls a small amount of air from your living space down into the basement. The air cools slightly as it passes through the cooler space, picks up whatever residual heat is in the basement environment, and then gets pushed back up into your home through a second duct. You're not using the basement as your primary heat source, you're using it as a preconditioning chamber. You're letting physics do the mixing work for free, and you're only running the fan when your furnace would normally be cycling. The payoff? Your furnace doesn't have to work as hard to maintain that 68-degree set point. Instead of cycling every 15 minutes, it might cycle every 20 or 25. Over a 3-month winter, that's the difference between running 9.600 minutes and running 7.200 minutes. That's a 25% reduction in furnace runtime just by letting your basement do what it was already going to do anyway. For someone on a fixed income, watching your heating bill drop by a quarter without buying a single solar panel or battery, that's a win that actually makes sense. But let's push this further. There's a second layer to basement thermal management that almost nobody talks about, and it's where you can start banking heat for the evening hours when your furnace works hardest. During the day, especially on a sunny winter afternoon, your basement gets indirect light through those north or east-facing windows. That light doesn't generate heat the way a south-facing window would, but it does warm the air slightly. If you place large dark water containers, 220-gallon tanks cost around $40 to $80 used, in the path of that winter light, you're using the basement as a passive solar catch system. The water absorbs that warmth during the day. It's not much, maybe 5 to 10 degrees warmer than ambient. But water has an incredible property. It holds that heat for hours. It releases it slowly and steadily into the basement air. By evening, when your furnace is working hardest and your heating bills spike, that stored heat in the water acts like a slow-release battery. It's keeping your basement at 60 instead of 52. Your furnace still runs, but it doesn't have to fight as hard against the cold. The delta, the temperature difference it needs to overcome, is smaller. Smaller delta means less runtime. Less runtime means lower bills. And here's where this gets practical. You can track this. You buy a $5 temperature data logger from a hardware store or online, the kind that records highs and lows. Place one on your water storage. Place another on your furnace's return air intake. Over a week, you'll see a clear pattern. The water is warmer than the air around it. The furnace is seeing warmer return air. That's measurable. That's real. And once you see it, you'll understand exactly why this matters. Most people think energy independence means buying expensive equipment. They think about solar arrays or battery banks that cost tens of thousands of dollars. And yes, those things work. But the real secret to cutting your power bill on a fixed income is learning to use what you already have: your basement, your earth, your natural temperature differences. These aren't new ideas. Builders have understood thermal mass and earth contact for centuries. The Anasazi people built their homes into cliffs because they understood that earth stays at a constant temperature. Icelandic families use geothermal heat from the ground for warmth. This isn't newfangled thinking. This is going back to basics. The difference is that now you have modern tools to measure and optimize what those builders had to do by trial and error. You have data loggers. You have access to affordable inline fans. You have plastic tanks instead of digging cisterns by hand. You can implement what took your grandparents a lifetime to learn in a single weekend for less than $100. Now, the complete guide to basement thermal management, including how to calculate your exact seasonal heat gains, size your water storage correctly for your basement volume, and integrate this system with your existing HVAC setup, is available in the description below and in the pinned comment. That guide walks you through the math and the installation step by step, so you're not guessing. If you want to go deep on this and understand the thermal dynamics of your specific home, that's where you'll find it. But here's something critical that most guides won't tell you. The reason your basement stays at a steady temperature isn't magic, it's geology. Below about 6 feet of soil depth, the Earth's temperature stabilizes at a constant 50 to 55 degrees, depending on your latitude. That's not the surface. That's down where the frost line sits. And that temperature is almost always lower than your heated living space. That means your basement is constantly losing heat through the foundation walls and floor. For most of the year, you're fighting that heat loss. Your furnace has to overcome it. But in late spring and early fall, when outdoor temperatures are mild and your heating is off, that cool basement becomes a burden. You don't need the furnace, but your basement is draining heat from your living space anyway. That's when understanding your basement's thermal behavior saves you money in the opposite direction. In shoulder seasons, you have a choice. You can close off your basement, seal the doors, and let it sit isolated. Or you can open it up for passive cooling. If you open basement windows on cool mornings and close them before the heat of the day, you're using your basement as a free evaporative cooler. The cool night air moves through it, it naturally cools to around 50 degrees, and then when you close it during the day, that cool sits there. Any living space you can keep cool without air conditioning saves you hundreds of dollars over a month. This is why old houses, the ones built before air conditioning became standard, had basements designed as living spaces in summer. People went downstairs when it got hot. They slept down there because it stayed cool. That wasn't just comfort, that was engineering. Now let's bring this back to what you can actually do this month. If you live in a climate where winter is serious, below freezing for months, your basement thermal strategy has 3 clear steps. First, measure. Use those $5 data loggers to know exactly what your basement temperature is doing over a full week. Don't guess. Second, improve airflow. A $100 inline fan that moves basement air upward into your living space during winter is one of the highest return investments you can make. It costs less than 1 month of elevated heating bills and can save you 5 months of heating season. Third, add thermal mass if you have south-facing basement windows. Those water containers don't cost much, and they work passively. No electricity, no maintenance, just physics. If you live somewhere milder where winter is just cool but not brutal, your strategy flips. You're managing passive cooling and using your basement to reduce air conditioning load in spring and fall. Same tools, different season. The measurement is still the first step. Once you know your basement's thermal signature, you can design a strategy specific to your climate and your home. The one thing you absolutely shouldn't do is ignore your basement. Too many homeowners treat it as empty space, a place to store boxes and old equipment. But that empty space is working whether you're aware of it or not. It's exchanging heat with the earth. It's holding temperature. It's either helping your HVAC system or fighting against it. The choice is yours. The knowledge is free. The tools are cheap. What's not cheap is continuing to pay utility companies for work your own home is already doing. If you're serious about cutting your winter heating costs and understanding how to design a heating strategy around your home's actual thermal behavior, the complete ebook guide goes much deeper into the calculations, the seasonal timing, and how to integrate this with your existing furnace or heat pump. You'll find it in the description or the pinned comment. It's written specifically for homeowners on a fixed income who want to understand the why behind every decision, not just follow a checklist. The bigger picture here is something worth understanding. For the last 50 years, we've been told that energy independence requires technology: panels, batteries, inverters, all the hardware. And those things have their place. But the real energy independence starts with understanding what your home already is. Your basement isn't just a storage area. It's a thermal machine. Your attic isn't just wasted space, it's part of your building envelope. Your walls, your foundation, your soil contact, all of it is already working. The question is whether you're working with it or against it. The utility company wants you to think you're helpless. They want you to believe that your power bill is something that happens to you, not something you can control. But you've been controlling it all along, just without knowing it. Every time your furnace cycled, every time heat moved through your home, every time your basement stayed cool while the attic grew hot, that was you. That was your home, doing work. Now you're just going to do it intentionally. When you start seeing your heating bill drop in February and March, you'll understand something that goes deeper than just saving money. You'll understand that the experts who built homes centuries ago knew something that modern convenience made us forget. They knew that the earth itself is your partner. They knew that thermal mass works. They knew that a few degrees of passive temperature management, multiplied across months, adds up to real savings. And now, with $5 tools and a $100 fan, you can rebuild that knowledge in your own home. This is the kind of thinking that transforms energy independence from a fantasy of Tesla coils and magnetic generators into something practical. It's using what you have, it's measuring before you spend, it's working with physics instead of against it, and it's absolutely available to you right now, this winter, if you choose to take it. Thank you for watching this video. If you found this approach to basement thermal management helpful, please subscribe to the channel and like this video so we can reach more homeowners who are tired of rising utility bills. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. We're releasing practical, affordable energy solutions every single week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.